As the fourth quarter winded down in the 2017 NFC divisional round showdown at US Bank Stadium, it sure looked like the Minnesota Vikings' dream season was about to come to a bitter end. Their once comfortable lead over the New Orleans Saints had vanished, and with 10 seconds left in regulation, the Vikings were down by 1, stuck in their own territory with no timeouts. Basically, Minnesota needed a miracle, and believe it or not, they got one, fittingly keeping their improbable season alive with one of the most incredible game-winning plays in NFL postseason history. The truth is, even if that playoff game hadn't ended that way, the Vikings' 2017 campaign was still pretty miraculous. See, 2017 was not supposed to be a banner year for the Vikings. Minnesota had finished 8-8 the season prior after losing quarterback Teddy Bridgewater to a torn ACL late in training camp, and Bridgewater's protracted recovery meant he would miss all of 2017 as well. That meant a second straight season with Sam Bradford under center. Now, to his credit, the former #1 overall pick played the best quarterback of his NFL career in 2016, but the Vikings' offense was still pretty lousy, finishing 23rd in the NFL in points per game and 29th in yards per play. And consequently, Minnesota's outlook for 2017 wasn't great. In fact, the Vikings' Super Bowl odds coming into the season were plus 4,000, the exact same as the Denver Broncos, who went on to finish 5-11, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who also went on to finish 5-11. And at first, it actually seemed like Minnesota might fare worse than either of those two teams. Get this, 1 week into the regular season, Bradford went down with a knee injury that would sideline him for weeks, which meant that the Vikings would have to turn to Case Keenum, a career backup and former undrafted free agent with a lifetime 9-15 record across stints with 3 different teams. In other words, 1 week into the season, the Vikings' chances in 2017 had seemingly gone from not great to virtually non-existent. But that wasn't the case. Instead, magic happened in Minnesota. In his second game as the Vikings starter, Keenum threw for 369 yards and 3 touchdowns in a beatdown of the Bucs. 2 weeks later, Keenum completed almost 81% of his pass attempts in a victory over the Bears. And that win, which came on the same day that Bradford re-aggravated his knee injury and played his final snap of the season, kickstarted a heater as improbable as any other in franchise history. From Week 5 through Week 13, the Vikings went undefeated, inexplicably thrusting themselves to the top of the NFC standings. And I mean inexplicably. Not only did they have Case Keenum at quarterback, but the Vikings also lost rookie running back Dalvin Cook to a torn ACL in Week 5. As exceptional as their defense was, that's a lot to overcome. And yet, Minnesota was unstoppable. Of those 8 straight victories, 6 came by at least a touchdown. And while their defense obviously played a big part in that, allowing more than 17 points just twice during that span, the Keenum-led offense was nothing to sneeze at. Over that 8-game stretch, Keenum completed more than 70% of his pass attempts, averaged more than 240 yards per game, and posted a passer rating of 100.3. And although Minnesota's incredible run eventually ended with a Week 14 loss to Carolina, the Vikings got right back up on the horse, winning each of their last 3 regular season games to finish the year at 13-3, the second best record in franchise history and tied for the best record in the NFC. Amazingly, the Vikings sent 7 players to the Pro Bowl, 5 on defense and 2 on offense, while Keenum finished second in Comeback Player of the Year voting. He also posted a higher total QB rating than Tom Brady, the league MVP. Just saying. Anyways, it was a dream season for Minnesota. It beggared belief. And as the playoffs loomed, the Vikings had a chance to do something unprecedented. With the Super Bowl set to be played at US Bank Stadium, the Vikings had a chance to be the first team ever to have home field advantage for the Super Bowl. But first, of course, they had to get there. And that brings us to their divisional round showdown against the New Orleans Saints, which figured to be a compelling matchup. The Saints had one of the league's most dangerous offenses, led by future Hall of Famer Drew Brees. The Vikings had the NFL's best defense, and there was some recent history between the two franchises that cranked the tension way up. In 2009, the Saints outlasted the Vikings in overtime in the NFC Championship game en route to their first ever Super Bowl title. And that postseason also happened to be the last time Minnesota won a playoff game. With all that said though, nobody could have anticipated just how wild this game would be. In the early going, it was all Minnesota. The Vikings took a 7-0 lead shortly after kickoff and made it a 2-possession game barely 5 minutes later. Meanwhile, their defense flummoxed Brees and the Saints offense. The Saints' first 5 possessions ended like this: punt, 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 interception, interception. By halftime, the Vikings had extended their lead to 17-0 and the Team of Destiny vibes were more palpable than ever. Hold up though. because Breeze and the Saints offense found their groove in the second half. On their first possession of the third quarter, Breeze capped an 80-yard drive with a 14-yard touchdown pass to Michael Thomas. Not even 5 minutes later, following a Keenum interception, Breeze found Thomas again, cutting the Vikings' lead to 17-14. And before long, Minnesota's lead was no more. With just over 3 minutes left in the fourth, the Saints took their first lead of the game, going up 21-20 on another Breeze touchdown pass. Then things got really nuts. On the ensuing possession, the Vikings reclaimed the lead on a 53-yard field goal from Kai Forbath. Yeah, it didn't last very long. The Saints responded with a field goal of their own, a 43-yarder from Will Lutz that put New Orleans back up by 2 with only 29 seconds left. After leading virtually all game, in other words, the Vikings were now on the verge of frittering away their magical season. Basically, with so little time on the clock and only one timeout left, the Vikings' only hope was to try to get into field goal range and pray that Forbath, who by the way had missed from 49 yards earlier in the game, could keep their season alive. The thing is, the Saints' defense wasn't so accommodating. 3 plays into their most important drive of the season, the Vikings were still at their own 39-yard line with no timeouts left and only 10 seconds left on the clock. They were screwed. Getting far enough downfield for a field goal attempt while also getting out of bounds to stop the clock from running out seemed impossible. They needed a miracle, and they got one.
Steps into it, pass is caught! Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it! Are you kidding me? It's a Minneapolis miracle! Stephon Diggs!
Wow. Wow. Every element of that play was just bananas. The perfect catch and throw from Keenum to Stephon Diggs, which, by the way, definitely would have given Minnesota a shot at a game-winning field goal had he stepped out of bounds. And then, of course, the egregious defense from Saints rookie safety Marcus Williams, who completely whiffed in his attempt to take out Diggs' knees. The result? A game-winning 61-yard touchdown and a spot in the NFC Championship game for the Vikings, not to mention a place in NFL lore. In fact, the Minneapolis Miracle was selected as the NFL's Play of the Year for 2017, won the ESPY Award for Moment of the Year, and was recently voted the 9th greatest play in NFL history.
I still don't know what just happened. I really don't.
Now, in the end, that incredible game-winning catch was the pinnacle of the Vikings' miraculous season, which ended the following week with a loss to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. And in the years since, the Vikings have gotten no closer to snapping a championship drought that stretches all the way back to their inaugural 1961 season. But while Minnesota is still waiting on that elusive first Super Bowl title, no Vikings fan can say that they haven't seen an honest-to-goodness miracle. Because they have.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.